So I guess the latest in the polls is Trump is starting to surge again. Carson going down, Trump starting to surge. Rubio a little bit, Cruz a little bit, and exclamation point spending millions of dollars and still not getting any more traction.
Well, the way Jeb's spinning it is that, well, this is where Barack Obama was. Hillary was in the lead, this time of the. But I think it's a little bit. I think it's a little different. People didn't really know who Barack Obama was at the time. They knew who Hillary was, just like they know who he is. That's the problem.
Well, even on that point, he came out, he was also pointing out Herman Cain, 999, the pizza man. And, well, Herman Cain was in the lead now, and look at what happened to him. Then Herman Cain came out and blasted him and say, look, dude, at least I was winning. I was winning for a while, Start talking jive after you've been winning, at least for a while.
Well, I actually saw Herman Cain was on one of the Fox programs. I always tune into them because at least you get a different angle. If you tune into CNN, or MSNBC, you get the same angle. That's the Hillary angle.
Right.
So, and then Fox, is going to be anti-Hillary, and so they had on Herman Cain, and he said, "Yeah, I'm for Trump because," and he said, "Here's what it is," and he was absolutely right. They don't want somebody who's an insider who's been there before. In the Republican Party, he said, in the Democrats, we don't know, but he said in the Republican Party, the voters don't want somebody who's been there because they think if you've been there, you're not going to do anything. Right. Everything's going to remain the same. And then, of course, they also brought up the fact that some of the Republican political insiders were saying, if it looks like Trump's going to get the nomination, we're going to throw our money to Hillary, which makes perfect sense because that'll be, Republican light.
Oh yeah, of course. The establishment Republicans would much rather have a Clintonian, because she's Republican where it counts.
Yeah, exactly.
She's establishment Republican where it counts. And another funny thing with the polls is there's another poll came out recently that has Bernie beating every single Republican head to head in a national election. But of course, the narrative still being weaved is there's no way he can beat. Clinton is the front runner, blah blah. Clinton, who's stealing other people's campaign lines now, but Shakespeare stole, so I guess.
Well, she's up to 1,000 emails with confidential material.
Oh, and did you see all those female senators, Democratic senators, came out, except for Elizabeth Warren, in support of Cullen Dunn.
Yeah. We'll have to see what Elizabeth Warren's game is. But I told you, I think she's an insider, and she's been told, look, Hillary's thing, just let it happen. So, and if you want us to play ball with you when you want to be there, let it happen. But it'll be interesting to see what happens with this FBI investigation. I think that's her biggest Achilles heel in getting the nomination. Anyway, getting elected, I think she's got a lot of Achilles heels. Her whole stance on no boots on the ground, and this is ridiculous. It's absolutely ludicrous.
Well, she's continually flip-flopping on that whole situation over there. So you don't really know what she's going to do what people tell her to do. Whoever she's beholden to or made deals with.
Well, she's got another 1,000 big money supporters, and I think she's getting some traction now with the insiders and the people who want to buy politicians simply because they know, A, Bernie can't be bought, and Trump can't be bought, and if he's leading, who are we going to buy?
Well, I think an interesting thing is there seems to be sort of a secret uh, a secret support of both Trump and Sanders. It doesn't show up in the news and doesn't show up in the polls. And I say this because, the whole Bernie phenomenon is sort of in an area that isn't really covered by the news or the polls, which is social media and millennials. And there's a lot of Republicans now registering as Democrats to vote for Sanders in the primaries, and that's not going to show up in any polls. And even with Trump, I got to be honest with you, people I know, and I'll, what do you think of the Republican candidates, blah, blah, blah. And then if I corner people enough and they feel comfortable, they'll say, you know what, I like Trump. I would vote for Trump. And it's nothing I don't think they would say
if to a pollster.
To a pollster, or even without being lubed up a little bit, like sort of like secretly, like, yeah, I would probably vote for Trump. If I say, well, who, if you had to pick somebody, and even another response I get, and this is, talking to people who aren't necessarily all that political, and some people still have not even heard of Bernie Sanders, honestly, which is another factor. I mean, we follow politics a little bit, so we know this stuff. But if you just like talk to a person that, because, well, and it just shows how little Bernie Sanders is covered in the mainstream media, because there's still people who haven't really heard about him.
Yeah.
So that's another thing that could work for him as his narrative, as more people become aware of his narrative and things get closer and you have to start paying more attention, because, nobody's watching those Democratic debates. Nobody's tuning into that stuff. And Trump is just getting free pub right and left.
Well, he already said he wanted to get paid, I think, $5 million to CNN, and he's going to give it to the vets.
Yeah. So there seems to be like sort of this undercurrent of support that's not really showing up anywhere, that will rear its head actually when the rubber hits the road. And two, Hillary nobody's really excited about Hillary. It's just like, well, okay. I mean, the establishment, or Claire McCaskill is ready for Hillary. All those senators, sans Warren, are ready for Hillary, and the union leaders going against their people are ready for Hillary, and CNN is ready for Hillary. And all the reporters that want access to Madam President are ready for Hillary, and all those ass-licking congressmen that want access to the quote Madam President are ready for Hillary. But I don't think the people really care and are excited about it. It's like, well, I guess we have to, because if it's a Republican, we're going to get some bad Supreme Court choices and judges and blah 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 blah. But like Bernie Sanders supporters are psyched and pumped and behind their candidate and going out and volunteering, and there's a buzz around it. So and the same thing with Trump. Trump supporters, there's like a buzz around him. They're passionate about him. And I mean, is anybody really passionate about exclamation point?
No.
I mean, how do you get passionate?
He's not even passionate about himself.
What's that?
He's not even passionate about himself.
Yeah, well, he's trying to be, but
it's so fake. It's so fake.
Yeah, and I mean, how do you really get excited for little Mark Rubio, except he's got his hot Latin prime Ricky Ricardo looks
like Rubio?
But nobody's like excited about him.
No, I think he's again the sort of acceptable, owned by the power broker kind of candidate. And then we have Ted Cruz, who is the real Ted Cruz. We'll find that out. But it was interesting. Newt Gingrich was on last night, and they asked him, "Do you see these emails as being a problem for Hillary?" And he made an interesting comment. He said, for Hillary supporters, they don't care whether she gets convicted. They're voting for her. It has nothing to do with, is she ethical, is she responsible, It's simply they're going to vote for Hillary.
Well, I think the Hillary votes are coming from people that want to kiss her butt, so Madam President will, because she's a deal maker. She's a deal maker, a broker. You do this for me, I do this for you, and wants to get some influence and to keep their cushness happening. And then there's the people that, God, I guess I don't have any other choice. This is what I'm being given, so I guess I have to vote for her. And that's all she's got, really. And of course, CNN and CNBC, but they're CNN is, Time Warner is invested in her campaign, and and they want, Anderson Cooper wants to hang out with Madam President, and be at that. Imagine that party. Imagine that party out on the boat.
Boy.
They're all there. Rachel Maddow's there. Anderson Cooper's there. Katy Perry's there.
Yeah.
Katy Perry might even be kissing a girl there, maybe. At that party. Kim Kardashian's there. Ellen is there.
Yeah.
Bon Jovi's there. That's what everyone's waiting for. And those congressmen, ass-licking congressmen, like those Benghazi peeps, like those Congress ladies with the great hair, they want to be on that boat.
Yeah.
They want to be at that party. So
they need a ticket.
Yeah, Claire McCaskill wants to be on that, wants to be licking caviar off some naked body like everybody else, right? So that's where Hillary's support, in the big fat cats on Wall Street, and some defense contractors and blah, 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 blah. They're all at that party. Bernie's not getting into that party, So that's what's going to be interesting is maybe there is this swell for these outsider candidates, because really now, right, Sanders and Trump are the purest outsiders of what's available.
Who I'm thinking is going to make, I could be wrong on this, but I think is going to have a little bit of a surge, especially in New Hampshire, I think is going to be Chris Christie.
Maybe.
I just have that feeling. I don't know why.
Maybe.
I think they're different in New Hampshire than Iowa. Those are two different sort of mentalities.
Well, and two, it looks like exclamation point is putting all his tortoise eggs in New Hampshire. But it's not working. He's not moving in the polls.
Again, as Gingrich said, he's an insider, and people are going to go for an insider.
And speaking of Gingrich, one of the Gingrich funded, or Gingrich worldy campaign organizations has basically been ripping off Ben Carson. They collect money to allegedly go to Carson's campaign, and all the money just goes to the handlers and the organizers of the fund, which is Gingrich backed. Look it up.
Yeah.
Serial wife betrayer, Newt Gingrich.
Well, he didn't get elected, to president, so he didn't get nominated.
No.
But I think he's a shrewd politician, so he kind of sees some stuff that's going on.
Yeah. And he loves being on those Fox News shows with all those hot newscasters. He loves that.
Only people that'd have him.
But yeah, Carson.
Incidentally, where would you suggest people go to get their information about what's really going on, particularly, say, with Bernie's campaign? If you want to know about Trump, you can go to Fox.
Right. Well, you can. You can watch the Big Picture. Anything. Thom Hartmann is a guy that has a great radio show, and he has a show called The Big Picture, which will give you some pretty straight up information. Ring of Fire is another place you can go. I mean, these are all progressive, where you can get more progressive information that's not filtered. But Young Turks is pretty good. Because the other stuff, it's just so propaganda now. I mean, the all the big major media is just
Well, Herman Cain brought that out when he was being interviewed last night, that you know that Hillary essentially is owned by the big media outlets. But interestingly enough, this is where I'm thinking people are going to see Cruz as an outsider, because anybody who wants to abolish the IRS and go to a one-level tax, boy, that is going against the inside establishment as far, because if you, well, basically, that's going to take all the power away from the attorneys who are up there writing all these tax codes.
well, it seems Cruz is pulling a Nixon era Lee Atwater stunt in that he's going for becoming the champion of all the fringe groups and collecting them to make a force. To go after people that are like one issue voters,
Mm-hmm.
and just patchworking a bunch of those together to form a coalition.
Yeah.
And like you said, he might not even believe in anything he's saying, and it could just all be a con. But that's what he seems to be doing, and if he's playing that con, then all the crap he's doing is to give him street cred, outsider street cred. He's just gaining cred, but he's still another Wall Street guy. Look at his wife, and look at where his donations come. He's another Wall Street guy, so he could be another one on the long con, going, all right, this Cruz, you do this, you go after all these fringe groups, that's your gig.
They're sitting there in a room going, okay, here's a fringe group. What do I have to tell them to get their vote?
Right, because they just want to win no matter who wins, and it's because it's the same thing. If a Bush or Clinton, that would have been the dream ticket for the status quo. The dream ticket, because either way they win. Either way, status quo wins.
Yeah.
Either way, oligarch wins.
But I think people, as I've said, they're fed up with the status quo.
Well, exactly, and that undercurrent isn't necessarily showing up in what's being reported by the status quo, because the status quo isn't going to report it.
I have a feeling we'll see a big discrepancy between polls and in other words, preliminary polls, and then what actually happens at the polling booth in those primaries. That would be the interesting thing.
Yeah, because I'm shocked by how many people, if pushed a little bit, go, I don't agree with everything he says, but I sort of like Trump. It's shocking, to be honest with you. And that's the difference between Sanders supporters and Trump supporters, because I know people who are very passionate for Bernie Sanders, and they're very vocal about it, and they're very, very passionate for him. The Trump supporters, you have to needle them a little bit. They're sort of almost afraid to admit it. At least, we live in California, so.
Yeah.
But it's shocking that they're out there, and it's like Nixon silent majority.
Yeah.
And we'll just have to see. I think probably on the Clinton side they're doing everything they can to just steal it, and kneecap and line up superdelegates and just put a stop to this. Let's just use my years and years of Goshen Dojao skills and the master bill and all their connections and all their networks, and let's just get this done and get it over with. But I don't know, man.
Well, I think the next couple of months are going to be fun. This month and January are going to be a lot of fun.
It's going to be fun, and then it's going to be scary. It's going to be scary if the smoke clears and there's just, oh my God, look at what's left. Then it's going to start to get scary.
Well, hopefully, Obama's busily out there working for Trump, like comparing climate change to the threat from ISIS. One can be dealt with and must be dealt with absolutely immediately, and the results can be immediate, and the other one is going to be an ongoing commitment. So, just unbelievable. Trump is saying thank you, Mr. President. He's probably sending him campaign contributions for his library.
Well, if the two most outsiders of the choices available, end up as the two nominees, it's going to be crazy.
Mhm.
If it's Trump and Sanders, that would be insane.
Well, I think that would actually ignite a lot of. We would have record voter turnout
Yeah.
because both sides would be passionate and everybody would be like, "Hey, we may actually get something done here. Let's vote for somebody."
But and you also have a couple of polar opposites
Yeah.
who are speaking from the gut and not speaking from a script.
Polar opposites, but Trump.
But they're sort of the same in some aspects.
Yeah.
They sort of,
I think they look at Wall Street very similarly. I think, Bernie obviously has a much more populist view than Trump does, especially because he wants corporations to pay lower taxes than individuals. But that would be a fun election.